The veil of silence hung heavy that entire day. Guests whispered about how unusual it was, but no one dared question my mother's decision. She had chosen her, the perfect, delicate bride who never spoke, who only smiled with lowered eyes. They called her mute, a woman of quiet grace, a safe companion for me. And I, too tired of fighting my family's control, went along. My name is Elena Ward. I'm 27. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. The wedding hall still smelled of roses and spilled champagne when we left. My mother's proud gaze followed us to the car, as if she'd sealed my future with her own hands. I felt like a character in someone else's script. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries and pretend it was love? Let me know in the comments. When we reached my apartment, the silence deepened. She moved gracefully, her white gown whispering against the polished floor. I turned the key, opened the door, and once it clicked shut behind us, the moment stretched thin as glass. She looked at me then, directly. Her lips parted and sound filled the room. Her voice was clear, deliberate, chillingly calm. I need you to know something, she said. My chest tightened. The world tilted. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. The woman who was never supposed to speak had just broken the first rule, and her words would shatter everything I thought I knew. Her voice was low, but sharp enough to slice through the silence. I'm not who you think I am, she said, each word deliberate, almost rehearsed. I stood frozen by the door, my fingers still curled around the brass handle. The apartment was dim, only the streetlight outside breaking through the blinds in fractured lines across her face. The air felt heavy, thick, as if holding its breath for me. What do you mean? I finally asked, my voice a whisper that barely sounded like mine. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked further inside, her gown trailing across the hardwood floor, collecting shadows with every step. She reached the mantel where a silver-framed photo of me and my mother sat. Her eyes lingered on it with a mixture of disdain and something softer, pity maybe. I let them think I couldn't speak, she confessed, her tone almost casual. It kept me safe, but safe doesn't mean silent. Not anymore. Safe? The word clung to me like smoke. My mother had orchestrated this marriage, hand-picking a woman she could control, mute enough to never argue, never resist. And yet here she was, standing in my living room, peeling back layers of secrets with every word. I agreed to marry you, she continued, finally turning back toward me, because I needed a way out. But, Elena, her pause was deliberate. You're not the one I need protection from. The words struck like cold water. Protection from whom? The way she said it, slow, deliberate, sent a ripple of unease through me. Protection from whom? I asked, though my voice cracked midway, betraying the fear I didn't want her to hear. She didn't flinch. Instead, she walked to the window, parting the blinds just enough to glance outside. The street was empty, the world ordinary. But the way her shoulders tightened told me she saw something I couldn't. Your mother, she said finally. The words slammed into me. My breath caught, a bitter laugh escaping before I could stop it. That's impossible. My mother! She raised me, I trailed off, my throat closing as memories replayed, her controlling voice, her careful choices, her sharp smile masked as pride. She raised you to obey, my bride interrupted, her voice steady but not unkind. She chose me because she thought I couldn't speak. But, Elena, silence doesn't mean ignorance. I've seen her, the deals she makes, the promises she breaks. I staggered back, leaning against the wall for support. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows thickening around us. A single object drew my attention. A small, brass key hanging on a hook by the kitchen. My mother's gift, the only thing she insisted I keep. My bride followed my gaze and whispered, "That key isn't for your safety. It's for hers." My pulse hammered. The key, the silence, the marriage, it was all a design. And suddenly I wasn't sure whose life I had just stepped into. The brass key swung slightly on its hook, as if stirred by her words. My mother had pressed it into my hand weeks ago, her smile firm, rehearsed. "This will keep everything in order, Elena. Don't lose it." At the time I thought nothing of it, just another relic of her control. But now, under the dim light of my living room, it glimmered like an accusation. "What does it open?" I asked, my voice thin. She stepped closer, her gown whispering like paper tearing. "Not what? Who?" Her answer chilled me. I reached for the key, my fingers brushing its cold ridges, and suddenly the air seemed charged. "You're not making sense," I whispered. She looked at me with something between sorrow and urgency. "Your mother hides people, Elena. Not just secrets, people. I was one of them once." My stomach twisted. The silence in the room roared louder than any scream. "That's not possible," I managed. "You're telling me she what? Kept you locked away?" Her lips trembled before she answered. "Not locked. Contained. Controlled. She chose me for you because she believed I was broken enough to stay quiet forever." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't blink. But she underestimated one thing. The light from the street caught her face just then, and for the first time I saw the fire beneath her calm exterior. She underestimated my memory. And in that moment I realized the wedding wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something my mother never intended me to see. Her words pressed against my chest like weights I couldn't shake off. My memory. I swallowed hard, the brass key still dangling from my hand. The apartment seemed to tilt around me, shadows bending as though listening. "What do you remember?" I asked, the words barely slipping past my lips. She walked toward me slowly, every step deliberate. "I remember being brought into your mother's house. I remember the rules, no speaking, no asking questions, no looking anyone in the eye. And I remember the others." The others. The phrase scraped against my throat. Her nod was small but certain. Women like me. Promises made to their families. Debts covered, silence purchased. Some stayed. Some disappeared. Your mother's influence isn't just inside these walls, Elena. It stretches further than you realize. A chill rolled down my spine. I thought of every time my mother had dismissed my doubts with a smile. Every time she insisted she knew best. Every time she claimed her control was love. The key felt heavier in my hand now, as though it carried more than metal, like it held centuries of silence. She stopped just inches from me, her eyes locking onto mine. "You think you married me tonight, Elena. But you didn't. You inherited me." The words clung to me, sharp and poisonous. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if the woman I called Mom had ever truly been my mother at all. Her last words coiled around me like smoke. "You inherited me." The phrase rattled through my skull as I stared at the key in my palm, its edges biting into my skin. My mother's voice echoed faintly. "This will keep everything in order." But order for whom? I stumbled toward the sofa and sank down, the leather groaning beneath my weight. She remained standing, her gown spilling around her like liquid shadow. Her composure was frightening, too calm for the storm she'd unleashed. "You need to understand," she said softly. "Your mother didn't choose me because I was mute. She chose me because I was obedient once. She thought silence would last forever. But memory," she placed her hand gently over her chest, "memory is the one thing she couldn't erase." A sick heat crawled through me. "So why tell me now? Why wait until the door closed?" Her gaze flickered to the key again. "Because the moment that door locked behind us, I knew you had a choice. You can pretend you don't know Elena, or you can use that key." My pulse thudded against my ribs. The key gleamed under the weak lamplight, mocking me. "Use it on what?" I asked. My voice cracked, but I needed to know. She leaned closer, her breath steady, her words sharper than any blade. On the room your mother swore didn't exist. The one she said was sealed for storage. The key seemed to burn in my hand. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I wanted to know what waited behind that door. The apartment was silent, but my heartbeat was deafening. The key felt alive in my fist, its cold pressing into my skin like a command I didn't want to obey. The storage room? I whispered. She told me never to open it. Her eyes hardened, no longer soft with pity, but sharp with certainty. And did you ever ask why? The truth was I hadn't. I never questioned my mother's rules. Growing up, they were air and water. Unshakable, unquestionable. I thought obedience meant safety. I rose to my feet, the floor creaking beneath me. If I open that door, my voice faltered, what will I find? She didn't answer at first. She let the question dangle in the air, heavy and dangerous. Then, finally, she whispered, the kind of truth you can't unsee. The lamp flickered once, as if the apartment itself shivered. My throat went dry. I imagined chains clinking, shadows waiting, echoes trapped behind wood and steel. I'm not ready, I muttered, half to myself. Her hand reached for mine, not forceful, but steady. Her skin was warm, human, undeniable. None of us were ready. That's why she chose you, Elena. She thought you'd never look. I stared at the key, my reflection warped on its polished surface. A lifetime of silence pressed against my ribs, demanding release. The door down the hall seemed to breathe, waiting. And for the first time, I wanted to know what my mother had been hiding from me all along. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered, each step echoing like a drumbeat of betrayal. My hand shook as I lifted the brass key, its teeth glinting under the weak overhead light. Behind me, she walked silently, no gowns rustled, no breath out of place. Only presence. The locked door loomed at the end, plain wood, nothing special. Yet every nerve in my body screamed at it. I slid the key into the lock. For a second, I almost hoped it wouldn't fit. But it did. Smooth. Practiced. The click echoed like a gunshot. I turned the knob, slowly. The door opened. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and the faint smell of metal. And there, against the far wall, hung photographs, row after row of women. Some faces I didn't recognize. Some I did. Their eyes stared back at me, frozen, silenced. My stomach twisted. Below the photos sat a chest. My bride stepped past me, kneeling as if she had done this before. She opened it carefully. Inside were documents, contracts, financial ledgers, signatures, proof of trades, exchanges, debts, lives brokered like currency. I couldn't breathe. My mother's empire wasn't built on family pride. It was built on silence, on women, on lies. I staggered back, the weight of truth collapsing my knees. And in that collapse, clarity struck. I wasn't her obedient daughter anymore. I was the witness she could never silence. The key slipped from my hand, clattering like a bell of freedom.